Hey Tracy, this one is.
I'll call this meeting of the Budget and Finance Committee to order. Let the record reflect that all members of the Budget and Finance Committee are present and accounted for. We have several items on the agenda, and I'll just make a few notes. The road department has submitted their budget for your review, but we're not actually going to discuss in detail their budget. I'm going to give you the couple weeks to look at that. But we do have from District 7, we have folks from the Department of Highways, Transportation Cabinet to come to talk to us about our rural, secondary, and flex funds. And so in order to go ahead and get them on down the road, pun intended, we'll get that started. So if you all want to approach the mic, introduce yourself for the court, and we may have it to where we can present it on the screen, but if not, you should have this in front of you, court and committee. So if you don't mind to turn on that mic, and the floor is yours.
All right. Good afternoon. My name is Francis McDonald with District 7 Planning. I am here to present to the court recommendations for rural secondary program for fiscal year 2025. We'd like the court to make two motions, one to approve the RS recommendations and the other for the court to decide the use of flex funds. A quick overview of the rural secondary program. It is a state KRS mandated program which allocates about 22% of the motor fuel tax revenue to maintaining rural secondary routes within each county. The amount that's allocated per county is based on the FITS formula: 1/5 equal share, 1/5 rural road mileage, 1/5 rural population, and 2/5 rural land area. The cabinet offers a flex program which allows counties to decide whether or not to use a portion of the rural secondary funds to maintain a recommended rural secondary route or to allocate it to maintain a county route. The flex fund amount is determined by the state maintenance rating of rural secondary routes. As you can see does everyone have one of these?
Yes.
Okay. As you can see at the top of the handout for fiscal year 2025, Woodford County got 20%, so that 20% is reflected in the $143,346. The $162,509 is strictly for RS projects or rural secondary projects. Now to go over the fiscal year 2023 and 2024 projects. 2023, everything's been completed. 2024, it's been awarded and authorized, but it hasn't started yet. So it should be completed, I think, within the next year. And then for the rural secondary recommendations for 2025, we have Ford's Mill Road and Clifton Road. And for the flex recommendation, we have High Street. If you look on the back on the map, you'll see that the rural secondary recommendations are in orange. The flex recommendations are in green, and the blue represents the routes we've maintained over the past 10 years.
Thank you, Francis. We appreciate that quick breakdown. Everybody should have a pretty good working concept of what we are dealing with here, especially you, Chairman Brown, and folks who have dealt with this for many years. But we have to make some decisions, and I'm going to have the Budget and Finance make those recommendations. But essentially, we need to accept the rural secondary program and the resurfacing recommendations for fiscal year 25 for the rural secondary projects as proposed by District 7. And then I do believe we have our road supervisor and operations supervisor with us, and they're going to recommend that we keep the flex funds allotted for use on county roads. That's going to be the recommendation. But I'd like to open up the floor for any questions on, Mr. McDonald mentioned, FY23 authorized projects have been completed. FY24 projects, Clifton Road and Ford's Mill Road, are to be completed. And then they have a additional Ford's Mill and Clifton Road there, and for the FY25. So I'd like to open up the floor for any comments or questions regarding the Rural Secondary Program presentation. And we have Austin and Casey with us as well. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. I would just ask, does anybody have any questions about any other state road questions? Oh, and we also have Lauren Carl with us as well. He stepped in here. And thank you all for joining us. Any questions on any state road questions, comments, issues? And it doesn't have to pertain to this directly. Then I would ask Mr. Road Supervisor, Madam Operations Supervisor, do you all want to talk about what you foresee using those flex funds for if the court were to vote to keep those?
We have a couple of ideas. I thought I had it figured out until I started second guessing myself today. We have one road in Squire Gentry's district that is in desperate need of work. That would be 4 acre. We may use it on that. I think probably the best route would be to present what we think we want to do to the road committee and let you all figure out what's the best use of the money. We definitely want to keep the money for this year. We've got a lot of paving that needs to be done, but I think the road committee maybe should make that recommendation, and then we'll forward that to Frankfurt. That way we can all sit down and talk about it and make the best use of the money.
Kind of got the roads prioritized on what needs worst, and you know, if you like, we will sit down and talk about ones that need it in the worst way. And Dry Ridge, 4 acres, there's several roads, the rest of Payne's Depot. So we've got some roads that does need some attention.
So I'd like to open the floor for any questions regarding any of that information that you've been presented.
I don't know if that now would be the time, but Tracy gave me a real good explanation of the different pots of money and how they were suggesting that might be helpful.
I'm happy to do that. Okay, so with County Road Aid, we get that money in 3 allotments. We get one usually right at the beginning of the fiscal year, and then we get another one, I don't know, like December, and then another one maybe in April. Municipal road aid can only be used on county maintained subdivisions. We used to get that money the same way in 3 payments. We now get it monthly. So we've always got a stream of money coming into that account, but it can only be used on county subdivisions. Yep. Lanes View,
Hidden
Away, anything that's a county subdivision, that's all we can use it for. Now, Dry Ridge needs some attention, but it's going to be very expensive. If we were to pave Dry Ridge right now, all at one time, it would be $500,000 or probably more.
But we're looking at from Shannon Run, a mile.
A mile at a time to
the
get
worst
it done.
part of it. Very worst part of the road, through the Thrill Hills, and that's where the roads come apart at. You know?
We did submit for FD 39 funding on that road back in September. It has not been approved, disapproved. We haven't heard anything on that. So we don't have that included in our county road aid money. because we don't want it to look like we're trying to double dip out of a bunch of different pots. So we need to wait to see what's gonna happen, with that FD 39 funding, because we just don't know yet.
And we're hoping everything goes in the right direction
We
before
do.
we can get that road done.
We want to get it done because it desperately needs it.
Yeah.
Other questions or comments? Yeah, Squire Brown, you're recognized, sir.
Which road of the two you mentioned is the worst that you think?
Well, Drive Edge is probably one of the top roads. Haynes Depot would be next in line. 4 Acres, then probably Haynes Mill would be some of the worst roads that we've got right
What
now.
you got?
With the exception of 4 Acre, those other three are heavily traveled every day. I mean, they get a lot of traffic on them.
How long it's been since 4 Acres has been?
A very long
I
time.
don't know for sure, but we're gonna have to do a little shoulder work down there on the very back. Was breaking off, so we're gonna have to go in, drive some guardrail, and do a little shoulder work before we pave it. But, I'm well aware of what it needs before we start laying blacktop. So-
Squire Brown, I would say in the 90s. It's not a heavily traveled road, but it really needs some attention.
Yeah. But we've got the creeks in really decent shape, good shape. It would just cost so much money to go in and hammer all that out and put big cupboards in, plus it's a dead end road.
Yeah.
There's no other way around.
Main thing is make it safe,
Yeah,
safe
but
as you can make it.
Right.
I'm comfortable with the way they are right now. We went in and poured concrete, I think last year, and done some patching, and I've got some more work to do, but, it's a lot better than it was. But there's room for improvement, yeah.
Squire Varner, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Judge. Is any of this money, can it be used for striping on some roads that are good now?
What's money can you use on striping,
That's resurfacing.
Only resurfacing? Okay, never mind, because I did have a thought about that.
Is there a pool of money out there for striping?
There's not, but, you know, we can use county road aid for that.
Because there's some of the roads that I travel on that if they just had a stripe at night, you could see the edge of them. It might be
There's
more
several
safe.
of them that we've discussed.
We've talked about 'em.
Your Delaney's,
Yeah. Yeah.
169.
Yeah.
I did
Cardinal Pike,
find,
those kind.
Drive Edge.
I did find the previous county engineer's spreadsheet finally
Yeah.
of roads that get double yellow striping and shoulder striping,
Shoulder
so that
stripe, yeah.
has made it a little easier for me to figure out what needs to be done.
Yeah.
And really, the only road that we've got in this county, as far as a county road, that, just my opinion, that would need a yellow stripe, if at all, it would be Big C. That's the only road that's really wide enough to have it. But I do agree with the striping on the side.
Yeah, that's it. Just so you know that edge.
Keep it between the
Yes,
ditches.
yes. Thank you.
And it helps with a new black road at night.
Yes.
You know, you can't see, you know, and I'm getting to see that more and more every birthday. Yeah.
Other questions or comments from the road department? Seeing none. So for our state folks, thank you all for the presentation. I think that the recommendation in the full fiscal court will be that we accept the rural secondary program resurfacing recommendations, and then that the county would opt to accept the flex funds for the county, and that amount is in $143,346, correct?
Correct, so, I can speak.
Yeah, come on up, Casey, thank you.
So the $143 that you see on that sheet, of course, is a projection of what we were expecting for fiscal year 25. I've spoken with Craig Cottle yesterday about where they are in finalizing that number. He does expect to see the finished numbers sent out to the counties by the end of, sometime around the end of this month. He does not anticipate major changes on it. In fact, I actually mentioned to him that that 143,000 would be a good number to budget from, because we do not expect any large, we would have just a negligible, change in that number, if any. So.
Good deal. Thank you, Casey.
Judge?
Squire Brown, yes,
Could
sir.
I ask him something?
Sure thing.
I know y'all surveying 169. Can you tell us anything about that, or?
Oh, well, yeah, the 169. So we do have a project that was authorized to design on 169. It'll take us pretty much from the county line, actually, and going all the way up. I believe it's just short of Eckert's Orchards out there. Shannon Run, yes.
Clear Creek in Jessamine County to Shannon Run.
To Shannon,
Correct.
okay.
Yeah. And so we did get funding, design funding authorized on that. Right now, we are looking to procure a consultant to design that project. So we do have a few years, before we actually get to construction on that section of roadway. Yeah.
Much needed.
Thank you.
One thing I should also point out, it is located in the highway plan as well. So of course, right now we're in veto session. I believe today, I believe it's through this week, the veto session extends. But yeah, that was one of the projects that was listed in the plan. Yeah.
Other questions of Casey or the State District 7 folks? We want to give our appreciation and accommodation to our highway garage here for the work during last week's storm and tornado. We appreciate all the work that was done on our state roads in Woodford County. And I know y'all were active other places all over.
That was a crazy storm, though. Yeah. But no, we appreciate hearing that. We'll pass it along.
Yeah, and I appreciate all y'all's working with us on our road issues, always being accessible, we're in a good place with our relationship with District 7. Appreciate Kelly Baker as well.
Thank you.
Anything else before we allow them to be excused? All right. Well, you guys are more than welcome to stay. It's going to be exhilarating, I'm sure.
It's going to be exhilarating, yeah. Okay.
Even though we're not going to discuss it, dead animal removal is next.
Okay.
There's a squirrel joke in there somewhere, but I'm going to leave it alone. Thank you, squirrel. Thank you. As I mentioned, the dead animal removal program was a discussion with the Conservation District. I appreciate Squire Varner kind of handling that. That's more of a budgetary discussion for next time, so that's not an agenda item that we need to take up. But if anybody has any questions on that, you can talk to Chair Michael Duckworth, Vivian. Squire Varner has some information on that, but it is not a needed item to be discussed at the moment. So you all have the jail budget before you, and I really appreciate Jailer Rankin and her team for the presentation of the jail budget. I've encouraged everybody, if they have questions, especially on constitutional office budgets, to contact the constitutional officer. But I wanted to open up the floor for any questions or discussion of the jail budget. Does anybody have any questions thereon? Yeah.
I spoke with Michelle, referenced this too, and I did notice that the federal, the prisoners had gone down, and she said yes, they had. Nobody has them, and she had lost some there because of her revenue on that, but she explained that.
Yes. Yeah, and they did a really good job. Obviously they have to be the first budget to be as close to done as possible, and they, you can see the changes outlined throughout. It's pretty self-explanatory. But we do have a couple new magistrates, so if you have any questions on the jail budget, please contact the jailer on that. That budget will be incorporated into my budget as is, without any changes. But if there are any changes that you all see or anything that you notice that needs to be discussed, you can bring it up at any point in time. But I anticipate that it will be submitted in my budget as it was presented. And we appreciate again Jailer Rankin and her team for their hard work on that budget. Moving on to department budgets, we do have recycling and solid waste, and we have Sherry McDaniel with us. Sherry, do you want to wait on Joe, or?
We can, if they want to do the budget or whatever.
Yeah, let's go ahead and I really appreciate Sherry and Joe and the recycling team for getting their budget ready. You all have had some time to look at it, and now's the opportunity to discuss some of the items. The one thing that I do want to discuss as a additional item that we're considering in the budget, we'll talk about in a moment, but it is about a proposal for wood and brush disposal, organic debris disposal. But Sherry, if you want to go and kind of discuss some of the main points of interest in your budget that have been changed from last year to this year.
Okay, equipment maintenance, we did increase that a little bit because of the new excavator, and we are very critical on taking care of maintenance on that and making sure that when it's time, or when, you know, we've had a couple of little things that they said we had to replace a cylinder, which they said with the usage, you will have that every year or two. So we've had to do a little bit of work on that. So we did increase that to $7,500. On item 3400, we bought a truck last year, and we bought it from Larry Steiger, and it didn't have a bed on it. So he offered a bed, and we went and he took it to where he normally has beds put on, and they put a bed on it, and we picked it up, and that bed is useless for that truck. It's just, it has a ball in the middle. We need this for a gooseneck, to haul our gooseneck trailer and to haul recycling, and right now it's a truck that we can't use for anything. So we did, we've talked to a couple of people, and we haven't took it in, but I put about $10,000 in there to build. I don't know if you've all seen our recycling trucks. They have the nice cages on them and the flatbeds. We want to do that truck like that. It'll be a little bit bigger, so Kathy will take that out into the county more, where she has the bulk of large items to pick up, like Castle and Key and all those distilleries. So we think that we can get a nice bed with that cage on it for that truck, and it can be used, and that'll put us with 3 route trucks with nice cages to pick up, and we won't be coming back in as much. So that was the increase there. Any questions on that?
Sherry, hold on one second. I know that you all have the digital copy, but I don't think you have a hard copy in front of you. And I know you all like that. Let me take a brief recess to provide you all the hard copy. But you all have had it in your email for review.
I'm sorry, I thought you all saw what I was seeing.
Sorry. We've been handing out so much.
I understand completely.
Full service judge running copies.
Do you have any questions over what I have covered so far? Yes, sir. It is.
When you say the ball,
Uh-huh.
now the ball can be taken out, but by taking the ball out, you can still use the thing, but you don't have the sides on it. Is that what you're trying to say?
This bed is just like a very thin metal bed with a ball in the middle.
Yeah, but that ball can come out. It's put in, and the newer ones that you can flip them down and use it without it.
But it's not hooked to anything. We can't use this bed and this ball for what we need.
Well, the ball, what I'm saying, can you use the bed?
No.
Okay.
We can't put a side on it. We can't
Okay.
do
Well,
anything.
but the ball can come out where you can use the bed somewhere else if you don't need the sides on it.
We need the side. I mean, we
Okay.
can't put recycling on it. Basically, it's just,
So you're gonna try to sell the bed, or, because they're pretty expensive.
it's so cheap, I don't know that it is, Jackie. I mean, we can look to sell it.
What
and
model
that's
truck is it?
I think it's a 2017, 16 or 17. We bought it last year. And we got it at a nice deal, but it didn't have a bed on it. But
Was it a
when
new
he
bed?
offered to put the bed on it, it's not a new bed, it was
Okay.
just a used bed he had, and he offered to put it on there, and it just doesn't work for what we need. And, it's a little bit longer, it's a longer bed, so that'll give Kathy a lot more room where she goes to Midway and does the distilleries. So that will help us tremendously in gas and time. So that was on 3,400. On line item 3661, the paint disposal for household hazardous waste, I increased that from 15 to 25,000. Our paint, it will be fine, that will cover our paint, but last year the state shorted us on our grant request, and according to what we were told, it was we got what we got the year before. So I don't know if that will be what they'll do this year. So we had to take it out of general fund and pay it anyway. So I thought, well, let's go ahead and budget that extra in case I don't get my full amount that I asked for. I mean, I always ask for the full amount that we get the estimate for, but last year they didn't. According to one state worker, she said they just gave everybody what they gave them the year before. So I said, well, I do a lot of work for that grant, and I don't like giving, just what I got last year. So hopefully that will be better this year. Our building maintenance, I put $10,000 in there because we have 4 bay doors that are just they're over 20 years old. And we've got 2 in the back that we really don't even want to use because we're afraid they're going to fall off. And we struggle sometimes with our alarm system, because they're so bad. So we got one replaced because it fell apart. So we looked and thought, why not let's just replace all of them and give it a nice look, give that building a nice look. We've got a new tire building, and we just think that would make the whole building look good, and it would help us out too this summer, especially when we can use that area if we have those doors that are available to open up. So that is pretty much the increases, unless you see something I don't see. That was pretty much what I increased.
So any questions about that, the increase there, the increases in line items? Again, if you all look back, 3360 is the additional increase to 7,500 for the excavator and forklift maintenance, essentially.
Right, 3360, yes.
Judge, I have a question.
Squire Varner, you recognize?
Sherry, and I see on the bill list, is that the bill and the cylinder repair on the bucket, is that the loader?
No, that's the excavator.
That's the excavator, but that's part of this
That's
increase?
probably part of that bill list, yeah. Joe would know more about that than I would, but he should be here any minute, but that would be the Mead, is it Mead or?
No, it's McCoy Construction.
Yeah, that would be McCoy, because Mead sold that to McCoy, I think, their maintenance, they sold that.
And they just rebuild that cylinder to put back on?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
And they just said that's gonna be, every 2 or 3 years, you're gonna have those little things like that, so, we got it fixed, because that's our baby, and we don't want anything to happen to it.
Right. Thank you, Judge.
Okay.
Thank you, Squire Varner. So the next item that I've actually between Sherry and Joe and Bo and the road department, and even to the extent we deal with it with emergency management, we deal with a tremendous amount of wood and brush and organic debris. This is definitely a prescient topic, seeing that we had a storm this past week, but it becomes increasingly costly for us to have that in a dumpster. And one of the things that we did was use the excavator to help pack some of that stuff down. But the reality is that the cost of disposal is going to continue to go up. The amount of debris that we need to remove is going to continue to go up, in my opinion. And I asked Sherry and Joe to look at the idea of a burn box. Right. So open up the floor for you, Sherry, to kind of discuss that, what process you and Joe have gone through and what you're looking at.
Okay, we took, when we were, this air curtain burner was mentioned, we went back and checked on, like, in a year, what we had spent on brush disposal. And we looked at approximately 150 dumpsters that went out of just brush and wood. That's with an average of 15 tons. And each of those dumpster hauls was $685. So you're looking at $102,750 a year went to brush disposal. I have $325,000 in that budget for brush disposal. So 102 or so was for brush. Then we looked at disposal for one brush dumpster was $685 plus 2 hours of an operator and 2 hours of fuel. That's about $60. So to remove one dumpster of brush, it's about $745. So over a year, if you add the dumpsters plus the excavator operator plus fuel, we're looking at $111,750 to remove brush. So when we looked at, and that's not including in May, from the May 3rd storm, the March 3rd storm, we did a burn pile out there, a small burn pile, cleared it with the fire chief, and we burned from April through August. So that doesn't count all the brush that we threw in the burn pile. But, so we spent $111,750 in a year for brush. So we looked at the air burner, and I talked with one of the ladies that, over at Air Burner Inc., and she said we could use the S223 firebox. So I had her send me all the information on it, and the machine, everything to start tomorrow, everything that we would need was $206,255. That's the machine. We would need an air rake. That's a big rake that fits on the Bobcat that you rake out the ash. And the starter kit, shipping. And this box also would require a 2-day training. So that's included too. It's, it's not just a box you set on the ground and you start a fire in. It requires some science, and it requires some, starting of it, and plus knowing how to load it, knowing your good brush from your bad brush. So, do you all have that? Okay, I'm glad you all have that. I wasn't sure. So when I looked at the air burner, once we buy it at $206,255, I was looking at what it would cost a year. Now that's your initial investment, but when I look at the air burner, running it, everything, the maintenance on it, it would cost us about $8,390.63 a year to operate it. So I'm looking at probably within 2 years, 2.25 years, it would pay for itself. We wouldn't be spending $111,000 a year on brush disposal going out in dumpsters, but it would be back toward the machine. So we would need an additional employee to add this operation. Right now we're running pretty much nonstop, everybody is, but we would need an additional employee to add this to our facility. It would require the 2-day training, and I've also spoke with Bo about it and asked him if I could, if he would even want a couple, 3 of his employees to get in on the training, because should we have a mass event like we were spared, it would take all hands on deck, and we could just keep that burner going. And so we were just looking at it and thinking within 2 years, 2.25 years, it would pay for itself. So any questions? I tried to make this digestible where it would be easy for me to understand. So
When Sherry, you did a good job with that, especially on the breakdown of what we're paying and our costs as opposed to the total cost of an air burner, not just the product, that sort of thing. And let me make a correction. So you all have this recycling budget in your email. You did not have it prior to today, but I mean it's not that many line items to consider. But obviously, if you have any questions after this, after you take a deeper dive into it, Sherry and Joe are always there,
Right.
Sherry in particular, to answer any budget questions. And we'll have another budget meeting next meeting as well. So there'll be additional time for discussion, but I really encourage those with the questions, ask them now. You also notice with the proposal for the wood and brush disposal, the very last page of that is also a quote on overhead doors, which is also included as part of the building maintenance line item, 5860, that they've increased approximately $10,000.
We've asked for two, but we haven't gotten one of the other quotes back yet, so, but that is the one quote that we have gotten back for the doors.
So, questions?
Just
Yeah,
got
Squire Brown?
on the burner. Can you put barnwood in that and plank and stuff and not hurt the environment, of the air?
You can even do pallets. It'll do pallets.
So it'll burn anything without OSHA getting on us, right?
Right. This one here is, the firebox is 22 feet 11 inches by 6 foot 2 inches by 7 foot 1 inch tall. So she said it'll burn root balls, naturally try to eliminate as much of the dirt as we could, but that's where, it's a pretty intensive process because one person's you're gonna have to stack your piles and you're gonna have to get them, like you want your good wood that you can start a fire with, and once it gets started, you can throw, the ragged other wood on. But she said it would burn root balls, it would burn tree trunks.
It don't smoke?
That's the air curtain part. You have
Okay.
to keep it, you can't fill it above this line because then it'll break the air curtain and it will keep the smoke. It'll like reburns the smoke
Okay.
and reburns the ash.
All right.
And, at the end of the day, you might have a foot of ash, and she said you can use 8 inches of that to start the next day. That's another hot start. Rake out all but 8 inches of the ash, and you can scatter that ash anywhere. It's good stuff to scatter.
Now, would you still charge 5 cents a pound?
We would,
Okay, so
because
that
it's
would
gonna
help
cost
pay.
us.
Gonna cost you, okay, that sounds
It
pretty
still
good.
costs us to run it.
Yeah.
And, this 111,000, that takes into consideration all that the county also brings in. We charge contractors, we charge homeowners, but the county, when it storms, you bring us a lot of brush. So that would, we're not getting paid for any of that the county brings in except budget.
Yes. And, this is a situation where I've looked at this concept because when I took office in 19, you just had gotten done with the 2018 July storms, which were a big deal, and all that brush. And I didn't know where the math was. The math is now, especially with the increase in dumpster prices,
Correct.
in the area where this is not a luxury, this is not a nice thing to have. This would save money over the long term. So I'm not asking the court to spend $200,000 so we can have a new way of disposing of brush. I'm asking the court to look at this as a way to save money in the long term.
Right, because with each contract, the dumpsters tend to rise with each contract, and we're due another contract in a year and a half. So this price is good for now, but I don't know what the next dumpster price will be. And we also have a problem when we deal with the dumpsters in that they have a 4-hour turnaround, which they normally do much better for us, but if on a good day, when I get somebody out there loading dumpsters, they get 3 loaded. Well, we're waiting. We're waiting until they can come in and load them. And as far as the burn pile, we did good when we had that. We had an extra person that they could kind of deal with that. But we were dealing with, every now and then the jail complaining about smoke, and we didn't even do big fires. We kept it very low, and it's like, I don't want to see a bunch of smoke. Just we figure every little bit we burned helped. But so that's where we are, with this. And when James mentioned it to us, we were like, yeah, that would be pretty cool, but it would require additional help for us because we're just tapped out right now. And we would have to have, and we would train 2 or 3. Not one person would run it all the time because I don't like one person knowing how to do something. I like everybody to kind of know, and again, with the road department, getting 2 or 3 of their guys in there so that if we have a problem, we can all jump in.
And Sherry, do you have information on warranty, lifespan, that sort of thing?
They should have it right in this firebox specifications. The last I looked, it said 10 to 15 years without maintenance, I think is what it said.
Yeah.
But naturally, there would be no time that we would not do the maintenance. It gives you the 5-hour standard maintenance, and I built that in with the cost, that it would be $640 a year to do the standard maintenance of it. In with your starter kit, they said they even send the, remember what it was called, the thermal stuff that, because if you throw, they said if you threw a big log in, and you could get a crack, but then you just need to, fill that crack, and that comes in the starter kit too, because you don't want to get water in it. It would mess it up. So along with this, there is some training, and you need to learn everything about it. I think I've learned everything that I ever wanted to know about an air curtain burner. But all of that comes in with the kit.
Would the additional operator, would that be more seasonal, or would that be full time?
It's
Okay,
year-round.
I assume, but I just
Brush never stops at our place. Marianne, you're there. It never stops. And that's why we didn't see an uptick in the brush even with the windstorm. We were like, I don't know where all this brush comes from. I really don't, but we never see a stop to it.
Squire Varner?
Yes, thank you, Judge. Sherry, this thing is 20 tons without anything in it. You have to have a pad for that, and also you have to have access to it?
No pad. We have to make sure we have a good hard dirt ground. Okay. So we'll have to really look at a spot that we can get to, and we also you have to be cognizant of the wind direction, because you have to put it in a section where the wind doesn't break your curtain, because if the wind breaks your curtain, you're limited on when you can use it. Right. So we would have to find that right spot. We would have to pack that dirt down, because it burns on the ground. Because we were like, do we need a pad? Do we need gravel? And it says, no, you need it on a hard dirt surface.
Safety wise for public, any kind of fencing or any kind of separation?
We have stuff running out there all the time. I don't think anybody, it wouldn't be right on the road. There's no, right. We would keep it back out of the way. Right. And
you'd have the brush dump one place for the public.
Right. We would probably keep our brush pad where it is now. That needs work, but that's what we would do, is probably keep our brush pad where it is. And then, because you kind of got to sort it again, you got to have the good wood that you can start your burning with, and then you got to have the other stuff that you can throw on. So, but it requires just hard level, and it has to be level. So I'm sure we would need some bow help on that.
Right. Thank you, Sherry.
Getting it level and getting it packed down good.
And I did see the life cycle, but is there a warranty? If I missed that, I apologize. Is there any sort of warranty that comes with it, or maybe we can? The other thing that you and I have discussed, and we discussed with Joe as well, but this would have to be bid out.
Yes.
The budget is the idea that we will purchase this, and then we have to go through the procurement
Right.
process. But it would have to be bid out and all that sort of thing before we could ever even go down that road. But we are fairly certain from research that air burner is one of the very few in the region, for sure, if not the entire United States.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, it's a big ticket item. It's something that, I want the full fiscal court's understanding of before we would budget for something like this. So, other questions or comments?
May I ask one more?
Yes.
What do you do with the coal after you burn your cinders and stuff?
All the ash,
Oh, yeah.
they said it could go in our wood chip pile, it can go on the ground, it's just there. I mean, you can have it.
I think you can use it back on the roads and stuff, can you, Bo? You don't think so?
It's an acid base.
Okay, so you can't?
But they were saying, when I read about it, it was like, there are people that would come, if they want it, you can give it, but we could scatter it, put it in with our wood chips. It's not that big a deal.
Yeah, but Bo, you had something additional?
Just my thinking on this, I agree with it, but, it's gonna cut down on the congestion out there as far as so many trucks running in and out and hauling freight. And I would think that what ash you could put in a dumpster would take 40 that you could burn up to fill up one dumpster.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if we had to, yeah, it wouldn't take that much.
Thank you, Bo. Other questions or comments? Squire Gill?
Thank you. Well, 300, you can see over time how the dumpster management has gone up. I mean, it's doubled,
Yeah, it has.
more than doubled since '22. So, I mean, that's a no-brainer, really. Because that price, I mean, that's going to come down.
That shocked me when I did the math, and I'm like, Joe, this will pay for itself like in 2 years, a little over 2 years, and then, the 5 cents a pound will more than pay for the operator and, all the stuff that goes with it. But yeah, I was a little surprised that it would pay for itself that quick, but
Yeah, that's great.
looking at the dumpster usage,
And that's assuming the dumpster rate doesn't
job.
go up even more in the next.
it's a given that it will probably go up a little bit. I mean, we have really good, Rumpke does us a really good job on our dumpsters and things. I mean, we don't have fuel surcharges or anything. It is just strictly that one amount. So we have been very blessed with Rumpke, and even though it was a little higher, I think the next bid was like 900 and something for a dumpster. So we came out really well with this, but it's a long-term relationship with them.
Right, it was 900 something plus so much more over 10 tons.
Yeah, they wanted to ding us over 10. Well, our brush is, and 15 is just, that's just a get. I mean, we have them anywhere from 15 to 23, and the trucks grunt, and we don't like to do them that heavy, but we have had some pretty heavy metal, heavy wood, well, especially when it's rained, and we throw some of them county road logs on there.
Other questions for Sherry about the recycling and solid waste budget? Proposed budget? Seeing none, thank you, Sherry.
All
Thank you,
right,
Joe,
thank
for coming back. And again, any questions you all have, because you hadn't had the 2 weeks to review that as, but Sherry and Joe did have that budget in earlier. We just didn't disseminate it, but that's all right. The other thing that I wanted to point your all's attention to is you have the Ag Extension District budget there. You received the first working draft of that last meeting, and the fiscal court has to accept that budget into our record, and this is their final draft that passed the Ag Extension District Board today. And so the responsibility of the court is just to accept that in the record, Madam Treasurer. I will note that they did propose in this budget to include an additional county manager position. But as you'll see, they've got plans to work around some staff salaries and some other stuff to make that work for them. But I will say that is a budgeted item. That doesn't mean that that's going to come to fruition. But if they didn't budget for that, then they wouldn't have the opportunity to then potentially hire for that position later on in the year. But again, our responsibility there is just to accept that into the record. Any questions or comments regarding that budget? that'll be taken up for the acceptance in the fiscal court meeting. Seeing none, let me see where else we've got. So, you all will receive, you receive the road budget, which we'll have time to peruse, and then we'll have our LGA and county road aid hearing to follow here in about 11 minutes. You'll also receive the maintenance budget. You know, the maintenance budget is always a pretty big budget due to all the county facilities and responsibilities we have for maintenance. That'll include the work of Rick and Sam Dunn at the Jack Jewett House. I anticipate that we will look at the emergency management line items next Budget and Finance Committee, which will be before our next regular meeting. EMS, which you've already received, we'll also discuss at our next Budget and Finance Committee meeting. We are looking at, Teresa and Freeman are looking at some paramedic and EMT pay increases proposals to come before the court. Those are not finalized, and that also includes the personnel spreadsheet that is not finalized either, but again, that will be distributed to the court at a minimum 2 weeks prior to the first reading for your review. One of the things that we're going to include in our processes will be that at the direction of Rich Ornstein, Keiko Council, and as another good practice, we did this with the neighborhood grants, is we're going to create understandings and agreements between anybody who receives county funding. So, you know, you're talking about CASA, Woodford Wheels, Mentors and Meals, which are all things that will be included in my budget, likely at the same level. I did discuss with Troy Roberts of Bluegrass Community Action Partnership about increasing our commitment to serving needs in the community through Bluegrass Community Action. And so he is going to work on a proposal that is in addition to what we discussed when you received their initial request. So that will come before you soon. When I have that, I'll disseminate it to the court. But I am looking at including that increase in our budget to help serve some needs. Do we have Woodford Wheels as well? We had their request. I think you all may have seen that, the Woodford Wheels request. It was received March 25th. You all have that before you as well, which will be included in my budget. Thank you, Madam Treasurer. Let's see. So our next Budget and Finance Committee will be before our next meeting. The next, Squire Varner, you talked about a budget workshop. So we just call those committees of the whole, where everybody has the opportunity to participate. We will have a committee of the whole on the budget in the first meeting of May. And then there will very likely be another committee of the whole, which will be to be announced thereafter. And I think that is pretty much the long and the short of the budget items that we have before this Budget and Finance Committee. But one thing that I will note is that when you all are receiving these line items, when you're receiving the departmental budgets, when you're receiving these individual requests, I'm not submitting to you requests that I'm not considering in my budget. I'm submitting requests that I'm very likely to include in the budget as it is presented. And what I would say is that one of the main reasons of having them early is you have the time to look over them, you have the time to contact our department heads, go through that, all that sort of stuff. So when we go through the budget workshop, we will go line item by line item, but, I'm hoping that we're not stopping in each individual department to ask a question that could have been asked in March or April. You can ask any questions you want anytime, but that's the purpose of including you all in the first round of drafts and the working drafts and all those sort of things. And we've got about 5 minutes for our fiscal court meeting, so I'd like to invite Steve Hunter from Planning and Zoning, if there is no objection from the Budget and Finance Committee, to give us a quick update on what's going on in Planning and Zoning.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Steve.
The judge wanted me to stop by and give you an update. We got a Planning Commission meeting this Thursday, and it's a big one. So we got 13 items on the agenda. That's quite a bit. We got so many, in fact, that we are going to start the meeting at 5:30 instead of 6:30 this Thursday night, and I've advertised that and calling that a special called meeting because we're changing the time, still in this room. But we got so many items on the agenda. The goal is to get out of here by 10 o'clock, or hopefully don't go past 10:30, I hope. But so we're going to start at 5:30 this Thursday night. We've got to kick off the meeting. The city of Versailles did a traffic study. I think some of y'all saw that. They did a special traffic analysis for the southern part of the city of Versailles, and it's got a lot of recommendations in it on road improvements that need to be completed if development continues to occur at the pace it is. So that presentation is going to come to the Planning Commission. The city's already saw that traffic study and looked at that, and has requested that the Planning Commission review the study and make an addendum to the comprehensive plan or somehow reference it into the comprehensive plan. So that Palmer traffic study is going to be presented to us Thursday night by 2 city council members that sort of staff that study as it's going through. Then after that, we've got 4 subdivision plats, 3 of which are in family conveyances, and I'll just tell you real quick. Those subdivision plats are on Steel Road, Shannon Run, McCracken, and Hippie AG Road. So we got 4 subdivision plats. We have 4 development plans that night. Versailles Senior Living, Freeman Harness and Saddlery, JP Rental and Storage, and Goodland Properties. So we got 4 development plans in addition to 4 plats. We got 2 zone change requests that same night. One's over here on Park Street, where the Woodford Inn is. Their property is actually zoned to 2 different zones, so it's more of a cleanup request to get it all in one zone so they can do a minor expansion of the Woodford Inn. And then I think, as you guys know and been familiar with, there's been a recreation opportunity out by the park on the Bluegrass Rail Museum's property that we call Rail Explorers. I guess you guys all know about that. Year 1, they were able to operate on the property under a temporary use situation. We're into year 2, and this is now going to become their permanent home, so they need a zone change to basically be able to operate their facility. Now that kicked off last Friday, I believe, so they're already into year 2. But we're working with them through the Bluegrass Rail Museum, so there's a zone change needed to go from agriculture to commercial so they can basically operate this, the Rail Explorers facility. So again, I'd call that a kind of an interesting cleanup zoning. Everything out at the park area is zoned agriculture because most of it's owned by the government. But that little 8-acre sliver that's owned by the Rail Museum is actually their property. It's zoned ag. They obviously don't farm it. It's not agriculture. And so we're making it, they're going to make it commercial as a cleanup project, so Rail Explorers can continue to operate there. And then we've got the text amendment that's the Versailles only text amendment. It's not the county text amendment that's been stalled for a couple months for some different reasons. This month will be interesting because the mayor has asked me to add on to that the medicinal cannabis verbiage. And again, if you guys know, the legislature put into effect starting in January of next year the ability to get what we all would call medical marijuana, I guess, but it's medicinal cannabis is what it's officially called. There's a new state statute that's been created